Well, oh my goodness, welcome to Wisdom Sanctuary. Okay, so in this course, we are going to be talking about everything that is healing and psychological, mental, emotional. This course is really focused on some of the key, really difficult things that we deal with emotionally. And these are topics that I hear a lot, and also topics that, let's face it, things that I've dealt with in my own life. And these particular things are things that can really cause a lot of suffering when we don't pay attention to them. When we don't pay attention to them, we don't work on the root causes. And my goal here is to talk about all of these things in a really comfortable setting. So let me tell you what you can expect from this course. First of all, in this course, even though we are going to be talking about difficult things that cause us a lot of sadness and suffering, the objective here is positive and also to give you blueprints and strategies of how to get yourself out of it. The next thing is I have purposely made each individual video relaxing, meaning I put relaxed, nice, vibey music in the background. So although we are talking about difficult things that come up in our lives, we're doing it in a setting that is relaxing and comfortable. Now, let's get into what are some of the things that are in this course. This is about a 3-hour course. Of course. Let me just tell you about some of the things that are actually in the course. The introduction is going to talk about what you can expect from the course and what the setting is going to be like in a little more depth. The next thing that we're going to talk about is how to get along. Now, in a world that is filled with conflict where people can't even talk to each other anymore, this is so important to getting back to basics. How do we be humans and have a conversation with people we disagree with? This shouldn't be super hard, but it is. So we're going back to basics and we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about 3 different ways of how to handle mean people and mean-spiritedness. We're going to talk about how to recover from resentment. I've had students ask me, can you talk about how to recover from resentment? Because people really do harbor things and they have a really difficult time getting over that. So this course is going to address that. This course is also going to address depression. And I ask a lot of thought-provoking questions because a few things came up for me that made me just ponder some information. And so I take you on that journey of not only talking about what depression is and throwing in an interview where you can hear somebody else talk about depression and the evolution of understanding her depression, but we're also going to have some thought-provoking conversation about how common depression is. And I pose to you a few questions to think about and ponder. We're also going to talk about sadness and melancholy and how there really are 2 different types of sadness and melancholy. And we're going to break those down and really give you a blueprint on how do you address those and work through it. Oh my goodness. We're also going to talk about how to handle family outrage, right? And you can also apply this to group outrage or group upset. It really can be applied to any type of group, but in particular, I share some stories and some examples of what it looks like and how to handle it in the most wise way possible without it becoming this big, crazy drama that sometimes we tend to get roped into because we're expressive people. We have emotions, we get upset about things, but then this little train of gossip and recycling gets caught up. This lecture is how to get through a situation like that in the most wise way possible without getting pulled into some crazy drama. Okay, so you will be able to apply that not only to personal family issues that come up, but it might be stuff at work or some other type of group that you're involved in where something is happening that has upset the group and there's a lot of chatter going on. I've also been asked a lot to talk more about grief. So in this course, I'm going to share some some things that I've learned not only from my own grief and experiencing grief myself, but I talk about the different types of grief. A lot of times we think that grief is just, when we lose somebody, when someone dies in our life, and we think of grief as that only. In this lecture, we're going to talk about the different types of grief because people go through a lot of different types of grief and they really don't look at it that way. They know it feels bad, but they don't really recognize that what they're experiencing is actually grief. And there's a very specific way in which you can deal with grief that is very helpful. And I also use not only my own experience with grief, but I also use my experience from working with people who have had extreme grief in my private practice and how we worked through that. In addition to that, all the books that I have read from case study of people going through the grief process and what they had to say about it. So in that lecture, I'm going to share all of that information with you to try and make it easier for you to work through the grief that you may have. And if you don't have any grief right now, let's face it, everybody's going to face grief at some point in our life, whether it's death or one of these other ways that we go through grief. And if we're working with clients, we need to know how to work with our clients and give them a perspective that they can live with to start to work with their grief. Okay, so that's a really, really important lecture that we're going to cover. And then we're going to talk about how to heal longing in ourselves. And we long for a lot of different things, okay? We may be longing for someone to love. It may be someone in particular that we're longing to love. Maybe we're longing to have a certain career. We could be longing for power, for things, people, places. There's so many things that we could be longing, and it could cause a lot of suffering when it gets out of balance. And so we are going to break down what longing is and how do we heal from that? How do we move forward? And then the final lecture is going to be on how to be happy. And this is really going to set you up with realistic expectations by breaking down what happiness is, how there are two different types of happiness, how one is more important, but both are going to exist in our life, and we need to be balanced and understand those. So with all that being said, this class is really a healing sanctuary for your own soul to be able to learn some of the most common things that we deal with and get another perspective on how to deal with it. There's also a workbook that's attached that is going to have all the blueprints attached that I talk about in each lecture so that you can print this up and really have this on standby for when you're going through some difficult times. You can pull out that blueprint and you can look at it. You can save it to your computer, or you can simply go back to the class because you have unlimited access to go back. And so if you feel like, oh, I'm longing for something, then you can go right back to that video and watch the longing video. If you're feeling sad or melancholy, you can go back to the video. If you're feeling a little depressed, you can go back to the video. And this is why I feel this course is so important, because it really is a healing sanctuary for you to find healing in, to go back to over and over again. And not only that, but you can provide this information. If you're in the healing industry, you can actually provide these blueprints to your own clients or patients and give them a focus on how to put themselves into that healing sanctuary when times get rough. Okay. So with that being said, you guys, I hope that you decide to take this course. Now, all you need to do is click that link below and put this in your cart, and I will see you in class. Bye-bye.